I ate your chicken. I'll eat your more. Give me $10 for you.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome those that are here with live with us this evening, as well as those that are streaming through YouTube, to the joint meeting of the Nash County Public Schools and the Edgecombe County Commission. I'd like to call the Nash County Board of Education meeting to order, please.
I echo Mr. Sharp's comments of welcome you for the Edgecombe County Board of Commissioners for
Thank you. With that said, Mr. Wiggins, I would ask that my colleagues, starting with Mr. Bishop, to stand up, introduce yourselves, and what district you represent, please.
I'm Chris Bishop. I'm District 4 for the Nash County Board of Education.
I'm Donna Chase, District 1, up in the corner near Castello.
Hello, my name is Dean Edwards. I'm out of District 2, the southern part of the county.
Southern Indiana County.
Good evening, I'm LaShonda Washington. I represent District 9. Fairview, Johnson, Parker, and Baskerville are in.
And again, good evening. I'm Bill Sharp. I'm the chair. I represent District 5. At this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Ellis, introduce Dr. Ellis, his staff, and we will introduce your staff, please.
My staff is stand up, so I can see all that. I was gonna say Steve Ellis, I represent all students. I got Sheila Wallace, Janet Morris, Shannon Davis, Angie Miller, Barbara Whitman, Shanita CEO there, Sanders back there, finance, and Louis Nancy Smith. And I will also say, Sheree Lamb, thank you for being here.
Wonderful. Exception. Only that I sit down. If you want to stand up, but I've been a big District 3. Edgecombe County Commission, so I asked Mr. Evans to go around and also ask our staff.
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Eric Evans, County Manager.
Wayne Hyde, District 7, County Commission.
Donald Ball for District 6, County Commission.
Paula Harris, District 2.
Ralph Will, District 5.
Evan Powell, District 1.
Billy Wooten, District 4.
Michael Peters, County Attorney.
Natalie Buzz, Deputy County Manager.
Randy Monroe, Clerk to the Board.
Mark Matthews, Assistant County.
Kathy Walters, County Secretary.
We're going to follow. And what we have at this time, Mr. Evans will update. All right, I see we have questions. We have questions from our board.
That's right.
Okay, that is what we have for the board. No questions from the public. All questions we coming from our board.
Yes, sir.
Click.
Just say next slide.
All
I got you.
Good evening again. It's my pleasure to be with you tonight and for us to have our annual joint board meeting. Certainly a wonderful opportunity for us to wonderful opportunity for us to share together things that we have going on with the county, and we're certainly excited to hear about things going on with the school system. So I'm going to give a brief update on some things that we've been working on in the county, some challenges that we faced, but also I believe some progress that we've made in some areas. So you'll see on the screens here, I direct your attention. So next slide, please. And so I want to give you just a brief year in review. Of course, we can't talk about this past year, really the past 2 years, without talking about COVID-19, as you all have been dealing with as well. We'll talk about some of our staff challenges. Unfortunately, I have to talk about the QVC fire tonight as well. As I mentioned, I want to share some accomplishments that we've had with the county and our priorities for FY23. Next slide, please. And so as you all have been knee deep in COVID-19 for the last 2.5 years, we have as well. Certainly you all have experienced it in a different way than we have, and probably a much more challenging way. I was asking Dr. Ellis as we were walking around, do you feel like that you kind of gotten back to a normal operating status from COVID? And the truth of the matter, I don't know if we'll ever get back to normal operations. Certainly it was a challenge for us as well. And I got some bullet points if you hit the next one. So just as a reminder, we had our first COVID positive case in Edgecombe County a little over 2 years ago, on March 27th of 2020. Since then, we've had 13,537 positive cases. And unfortunately, we've had 139 deaths of our citizens that have lost their lives from that virus. We're grateful that the COVID positive numbers have come down considerably. We are hovering around 4 to 5 new cases per day. Certainly, we hope it stays that way, or in fact goes down even further. We've been making a big push, our health department, as well as all of our health providing partners across not just the county, but the region, encouraging people to get vaccinated. In Edgecombe County, we have 52% of the total population has at least one vaccine, compared to 66% across the state. So certainly we have our work to do now. As you know, that a second, now third booster is available for certain populations, but we want to continue to encourage people to get the vaccine. Next slide. So, really the looming question is the pandemic behind us? And it's hard to tell. We are cautiously optimistic, as you did, last year. We all thought it was behind us, and then we saw cases rise again. But hopefully that won't be the case for us again. And certainly it has taken a lot of our attention and resources over the last couple of years in order for us to be able to continue operations of the county, to provide essential services to our citizens, while as best we could protect our employees as well as citizens coming into our buildings to do business with us. It's been a challenge. Our staff has done a wonderful job. We did make some adjustments in our schedules early on in the pandemic, but we've never stopped operations with the county, and we're proud to be able to say that. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we've been dealing with, I'm sure you all as a board, your superintendent, all of the principals have been dealing with staffing challenges. We are experiencing a higher than usual turnover rate. And of course, the pandemic has helped to reshift and shake up the job market out there. And certainly it is the employees market now. And so we're all competing for some of the same folks. And that high demand has really created a mindset of mobility. Whereas before we felt that we had an advantage in that, county is a place that you go, you get good benefits, maybe not the best pay, but good pay. We feel like it's good pay, good benefits, a really good retirement, and people were more apt to stay in for the long haul. But now there's a mindset of mobility, and people will quickly leave for a little bit more money or different work environment. So that's a challenge for us, as I'm sure you all have seen as well. And also the pressures of the pandemic. The stress and anxiety of trying to continue to provide essential services to our citizens in the midst of the pandemic has been a challenge, to say the least. And we see that frustration and anxiety with our employees. And so, we are looking at how we can make our work environment better to relieve some of that pressure, but that certainly is a challenge we face. Next slide, please. Also, unfortunately, on December the 18th, I got a call early that morning that one of our largest employers in the county, they had to fire a QVC. And that's a tremendous blow to the county. QVC is about 1.2 million square feet of facility there. About somewhere between 70 and 80% of the facility was destroyed. There's still parts of the facility that were not, that we believe are operational. They usually hovered around 12 or 1,300 employees at that time. They have ramped up for the holiday season. So there are just under 2,000 employees that were immediately displaced because of that fire. We've been told it is the largest facility fire in the state of North Carolina. And as tragic as that was, and as we will work very hard to rebound from that, out of that, I'm so proud of all of our first responders, not just our first responders in Edgecombe County, but from many, many counties all across this state who came right at our side and helped us to respond. There were 107 agencies that responded, and that included 83 fire departments. And it was a well-oiled machine with so many different departments. People who were working together and not met each other before worked so well together, and they worked very hard to minimize the damage to that facility. And unfortunately, we lost a person in that fire, and it's certainly tragic. I'm sure you've all heard the more recent news that that QVC has decided not to rebuild at that facility, which was disappointing for us, but we still believe there's great opportunity there. The logistics sector is still booming, as you know, and we all probably suffer from it in some way or another. Supply chain has been under pressure all around the world. So a facility like that is desperately needed within the marketplace. So we feel like that is a very marketable site, and we'll be having ongoing conversations with the folks at QVC. And we want to assist them in marketing that site. And hopefully we'll be able to get somebody back there as quickly as possible. There's still all the infrastructure, all the water, sewer, the streets, parking, lights, all of that is still there. As I mentioned, there are a couple of sections of the building that need very little work to get back to operational status. Just a couple of notes, next slide please, on some accomplishments I want to share. In economic development, certainly QVC was a blow for us, a step back, unplanned, unintentional step back for us in economic development, but we had some steps forward. CSX Intermodal site started its operations last year. It's fully operational and working well. It continues to be the economic driver that we always dreamed it would be and knew it would be. A lot of businesses know that it's here now. They want to be close to that to help to reduce their logistical costs. And so the intermodal site is doing very well. Corning Distribution Center is operational, been full tilt for about a year, a little over a year now, and doing well. More recently, LS Cable in Tarboro announced an expansion. They'll be creating about 85 jobs there. So they've been a great corporate citizen for Edgecombe County, and we're excited about the jobs they're going to be creating. Also for the county, we're doing something that we call our Community Voice Initiative. We've always felt like we could do more to try to communicate with our citizens, both to communicate to them, also to hear from them back to us. And so, we have our public meeting once a month and other times throughout the year, and other ways that they can communicate with us. They can come to our office anytime that we're open. But we wanted to add to that. We wanted to widen the road in our communication with our citizens. So we started Community Voice. It includes a few different initiatives. We have now a citizens feedback form on our website where citizens can easily submit questions, concerns, complaints if they have them. And they can send them directly to the department, and we respond as quickly as we can. This year, we started our very first Citizens Academy. We've got 12 folks that are participating in that. They've got 2 more sessions. They've been having a great time. We got one of our attendees here tonight, and so that we've been very proud of that, and some other things that we're doing to try to increase our communication with our citizens. Also, January of 21, we transitioned emergency medical services in-house. It was before then, many years ago, with several volunteer agencies, and then at some point they were combined under Edgecombe County Rescue Squad. Through different conversation, we made a decision, our board made a decision, we felt it would be best for the future of that organization to bring that in-house. So now that is a division of our emergency services office. That's quite an undertaking to bring that whole operation within, and we couldn't take a week off to get things lined up. So those trucks had to continue to run. Our folks planned that very well, handled that very well. So we've got about 65 full-time employees, 15 to 20, it fluctuates, part-time employees. We're happy to be able to deploy some new equipment, some new trucks on the road, and we feel like that's going very well. Finally, it might seem like a small thing, but it's a big thing to us. Our county, our board for a long time has had Parks and Recreation as a priority, wanting to increase opportunities for our citizens to be able to visit a park or have recreational opportunities. A few years ago, they decided to create a program called the Recreation Mini Grant Program. We make small investments to programs out in the county, primarily in areas where they have few opportunities for recreation. And we make those investments in programs all across the county. So this is our 4th year doing that. But just recently, about 6 months ago, we did our first comprehensive parks and recreation plan that our board approved. And we're happy to be able to implement that now. We have a person on staff that's paid by a grant program who's facilitating the implementation of that plan, and that's going well. So that's something that's been very important to us. Next slide. So as you know, you all will be talking about your budget tonight. We are working on our budget as well. We've not yet made our presentation to our board. We have talked about some priorities at their retreat about a month or so ago. And so as you have to set priorities, we are as well. One of the priorities that we are bringing to the forefront is our staff. You know, our staff is, we believe, the most important resource that we have. And 500 or so employees, each and every one of them, they're valuable to us. We cannot do what we need to do without our employees. And so we've always known that they are a priority and they mean a lot to us, but we realize now we've got to do more to support them. Of course, salary is important. You know, money is important for everyone. And our board, I believe our board is committed to doing as much as we can with this upcoming budget to try to address salaries for our employees. But we're looking at other things as well. We are exploring opportunities where possible to create opportunities for work from home situation, maybe some flexible work schedules, things like that, just so that we can make our work environment more attractive to our staff. It's extremely competitive. You know, we are boarded on every side by some other county that would love to have one of our employees, and they come after them sometimes. And so we need to become more competitive so that we can attract more employees and that we can retain the employees that we have. Also, economic development, you know, as I mentioned with CSX, we did have QVC, we had a setback with that. But moving forward, economic development is absolutely continuing to be a priority for us. Our board over 20 years ago saw the vision in Kingsborough Industrial Park and started investing money into accumulating land that we could have to make available to prospects coming to the county. And they've continued that commitment. We are at the point that, and I don't think it's any exaggeration whatsoever, that we have in Edgecombe County the best and most ready industrial site in all of the state of North Carolina. I think it's probably the most ready industrial site of its size in the southeastern United States, but I'm not sure of that, so don't print that in the paper. But without a doubt, it is the best, biggest, most ready industrial site in the state of North Carolina. We've got about 1,400 acres that the county owns there. We've got a number of prospects that are looking at it now. Our economic development of Carolina Gateway Partnership working hard every single day going out and trying to entice people to come. We know that the long-term prosperity of our county is heavily dependent on not only education, but also job opportunities to get a good job, good paying job with livable wages. So we believe that in the long term, that's what's really going to help us to move the needle. And certainly not just Kingsborough, that's the jewel in our crown, but we've got other existing businesses that we want to help to expand. So we're going to continue to make economic development a priority. And also beyond economic development, we've got to continue to invest in the future of our county. We have a unique opportunity right now. We've been talking about broadband as an example of investing in the future of our county. We've been talking about broadband for a number of years. We've needed it for a number of years. There are places in Edgecombe County, as Nash County, and all places around us where your students, our students, they go home and they've got work to do and they either don't have it or they don't have affordable broadband available to them. So we have the first very live opportunity I believe we've had in a very long time to really move the needle on that. We've got 4 companies right there and we're in conversations with. We've got some federal COVID funds, ARPA funds that we have available to us. We're going to be meeting with those companies on this Thursday, and we may decide to partner with one or more than one of those. But I really believe that we have an opportunity now to move forward and trying to provide affordable, high-speed internet access to our citizens. And that's just one example of investing in the future. Certainly, I believe our best investment that we can make is in our students through our schools. And so we're happy to be here tonight, happy to hear what you have planned for next year. And we look forward to being able to support you in any way we can. Next slide. I like to end with that slide. It's this final slide. It's the best looking board of commissioners. So I got to end with that slide.
That's a good political statement.
I did start yesterday. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
We'll entertain questions.
Dallas, the next question got notes from the school board, and instead we considered the Nash County budget.
I will next time.
We learned something each week.
Before we start, we have a handout that we put at everybody's table. We like a pager and goes over numbers presentation. So first, I'm going to echo what Mr. Sharp said. Thank you for being here tonight. There's nothing better than to break bread with barbecue and chicken. That was delicious. And so definitely start. I hope no one falls asleep during this presentation because I know I ate my fair share. But what I would like to first start off with is I'm so glad we're at school. Because my North Star is in this building. Because a long time ago I realized this is what I want to do. So every time I'm in the building, I remember what I'm here for. So tonight when we meet, it's not about counties and all this kind of stuff. It's about kids in this building. If it was up to me, we'd have it at 2 o'clock and they're just listening all over the place. So we never forget why we're here. So I just want to make sure I put that out there because it's not about numbers tonight. It's about kids. And like Eric said, it's about their future. But it's not a numbers game to me. It's about kids and their education. So first, thank you for having us tonight. We're going to start this. Let me kind of go to the agenda. I've done a welcome. We're going to go over our review of this year. Then we're going to go into the budget. We're going to talk about our challenges, and then we're going to make requests. And then at the end, if we have questions, we'll go from there. Next slide. So what I'm going to do is let Mr. Shannon Davis talk about our completed projects for this year. Good evening.
Just want to go through some projects. This isn't a complete list. It's some of the major projects we completed this year from a capital outlay budget. You can start the first slide here. You'll see we've started replacing a lot of our elementary carpet floors with polyurethane finishes. So the newer style floor that we've started using, we did this one at Winston Avenue. Doesn't stain as bad. It's a lot easier to clean. Kids get on the floors. It's a much better product than replacing with carpet. Next slide, you can see Williford Elementary. We also did that one. You can put it in many colors. You put the mascot on the floor. And it's not a very, very expensive floor compared to replacing carpet and getting stains. Next slide. Nashville Elementary, this was one of the last elementary schools we had. We started with our high school several years ago, replacing all of the bleachers, sanding the floors. We dropped down, got all the middle schools, new bleachers, sanding, refinishing the floors, and then we started with our elementaries. And Nashville Elementary is the next to the last school. Red Oak Elementary will be the last elementary school that's had new bleachers, as well as you can look in the back, window replacements in those gymnasiums. And if you look at the top, that's the sock duct for the new heating and air that we installed. My staff did all of the heating and air work in-house. Next slide. This is Spring Hope Elementary gym. We did this roof replacement out of this fiscal year money. The gym windows were also replaced last year. Every year we do purchase 2 maintenance vehicles, trying to do that to keep our fleet up to date, as well as grounds, trim mowers or tractors or things of that nature. We try to buy at least something to keep the fleet updated. The picture you're seeing here is phase 2 of Fairview. We did phase 1 last year on the shingles. This would be the back ends. We replaced the shingles on this campus. Northern Nash High School, we're replacing the lights with new LED fixtures. We completed Southern Nash Senior High School several years ago, kind of walking around the campus. We did a lot of that in-house. Northern Nash the same way, we're completing a lot of that in-house. Nash Central High School replaced the roof on the gymnasium, field house, and the media center. We will complete that section in the next coming year. And Southern Nash High replaced the gym roof. And of course, last you see the Fairview. Next slide. Some of the overlaying projects on the left picture there, you'll see that's Marby Hubbard. We overlaid that staff parking lot. And on the right, you'll see that's the parking lot adjacent between Fairview and Johnson. That was overlaid this past summer. Okay, these are projects that are currently in progress or getting ready to start. Of course, this is the Red Oak Elementary School, slated to open in December with phase 1. The Red Oak Elementary current kids will be moved in starting January. We'll tear down the old building and move the Cedar Grove Swift Creek kids in next June. So then we'll have roughly, it's an 800 ADM campus. We'll start that probably somewhere between 750, depending upon enrollment. This is a slide of actually where we are now in construction. This picture was taken last week. We are still basically on schedule. We've had a few challenges with logistics and getting materials, but we're still within a 2-week window of where we're still wanting to occupy the building. This is a project we're slated. We have hired and drawn this. This is the field house at Northern Nash. You're looking at the back rendering with the practice field. You push the next slide. This is the front entrance. Again, we have bid this project. We've got it in. It's a little over $4 million and waiting additional funding to proceed with this project.
So at this time, Finance Director, Ms. Barbara Whitman, will talk about the proposed budget.
Good evening, everyone.
Sorry.
Okay, this is just a summary of the proposed revenues for Nash County Public Schools. As you can see, we have $127,852,033 for our proposed budget for this coming school year. Oh, okay. Excuse me. Next slide. This is just showing you the percentages of our revenue by fund. As you see, the state is our biggest contributor. Next slide. And here we're just looking at the local expenditures by program. This is just allocated out based off of the different departments within the Nash County Public School System and based on their needs. Next slide, please. It continues. This is just showing you our current expense, local current expense proposed budget. At this time, we are basing our appropriations from Nash and Edgecombe County schools along with the fines and forfeitures off of the same amount that we received this current year, 21-22. So at this time, this is your 22-23 budget, but it's still the same as the 21-22 budget. Next slide, please.
This time, I'm gonna let Ms. Wallace come up here and talk about the extra funding we received this year and last year.
Good evening, everyone. As you are aware, the federal government provided all of us with COVID relief funding. We received funding in 3 pots or 3 buckets, and they were sizable amounts. And we went and met as a cabinet, and from there, we prioritized what our needs were. However, you know, when we're dealing with federal funding, it does come with some strings attached. So we did have more flexibility than we've had in the past with federal funding, but we still had to remain within certain guidelines or restrictions. So the first pot that we received was ESSER 1, that's PRC 163. We received approximately $4.2 million. And as I mentioned, we did prioritize how we would use that funding. There's a list of items that we use the funding for: SEL services for middle schools, mental health, clinical day treatment services, sanitation supplies, summer learning, after school, leadership support, and retention bonuses. ESSER 2 was the second pot of funding that we received, PRC 171. We received approximately $16 million. We again prioritized how we would use that funding, and it was decided upon for technology support, student service, student devices, activity buses, HVAC systems, windows replacements and doors, school nutrition, also the summer program, which was the Jump Start Academy for summer school that was designed by the state. ESSER 3, PRC 181. We received approximately $36 million for that. It was characterized of how we would use this funding: cafeteria upgrades, Kelly Services, which is a vendor we use to provide substitutes for our teachers, a beginning teacher director, sanitation supplies and materials, interactive boards for all of our K-12 classrooms, activity buses, Read 180 facilitators for middle school and high school, guidance assistants for middle school and high school, NETA, which is our virtual academy. We have a coordinator and a few staff members that this funding was used for. Additional nurses and social workers, retention bonuses, fine art supplies and materials, media digital resources, and many capital outlay projects.
I'm going to go through just a few of the ESSER funding projects that we have been completing in the last year since we've received funding. You can see here Northern Nash Gym, Northern Nash classrooms. We've been working on 15 classrooms, and we've kind of done this in tandem with some of our capital money. If you remember on one of the last slides, we are doing ceilings and LED lights while we're renovating the heating and air systems at Northern Nash as well. Northern Nash High replacement in the 600 building chiller, Cooper's Elementary dining room, Hubbard Elementary cafeteria, Hubbard Elementary 2 and 300 wings. Those were done in-house, the Hubbard 2 and 300 with my staff, as well as the Cooper's dining room. And the picture you're seeing behind here is Nash Central Middle. That's one of the 2 chillers replaced on that campus. This here on the left is Parker Gym replacement. What we've done is pulled, well, the picture on the right before I go there is, this was taken last week. That's the Parker chiller replacement. It was done over spring break while kids were out. But we've pulled the gymnasium off the main chiller because the gymnasiums, we're doing this a lot throughout the district. It saves utilities because the gyms are one of the main places that we have functions. So we've kind of got that under its own little plant so that we can save money and operate that without having to fire up a 150-ton chiller from a utility standpoint, running pumps throughout the building. Next slide. This is Nashville Elementary. Red Oak Elementary. This was used with ESSER fund. This is a gymnasium that was not really the gym itself was not part of the contract. We pulled that out. The mechanical piece was paid for with ESSER funds. My staff, again, is installing the heat and air system in this gym. We've also replaced a chiller at Rocky Mountain Middle, and we're in the process now with Edwards. We're putting the same VRF system we started with, piloted at DS Johnson several years ago with the 500, 700, 8, 9, and admin. And we're going to end up doing the gymnasium the same way on that campus. And we've also have purchased Bailey Elementary chiller replacement, but that is yet to arrive. Next slide. These are some of the window replacement projects. It's not all of them. Hubbard Elementary is the one picture. You'll see we got the new windows on the left. And we just finished these actually today. The contractor wrapped up the last of the windows. You'll see here, this is just a shot before we replaced them with the new ones. We're also going to start Williford Elementary School probably next week. Those windows should be arriving. Edwards Middle, Spring Hope Elementary Auditorium, and Cooper's Pre-K building. And finally, activity buses. We had an aging fleet, so we did purchase 14 activity buses with ESSER's spending money to try to keep from using our capital money for those replacements.
So now we're going to go into some of the funding challenges that we're face this year and next year. One is increased salary benefits. I'm going to get Ms. Whitman to talk here shortly to describe that. Technology demands, a declining ADM, and teacher retention. Next slide. Ms. Whitman, if you can come.
Okay, this is just showing you our anticipated changes for the year 2023. The salary increases, as you can see, the classified employees That is a 2.5% increase. The state has gave us 2 years to bring our employees up to the $15 an hour pay. And so this is year 22, 23 is the year that we have to meet that. So that's an increase in salaries for all of our classified. Also, our benefits are increasing. As you can see, the retirement is increasing 1.3%. Our hospitalization is increasing $378 per employee. If you look at that and say we average 2,500 employees, that is an additional $945 million in just hospitalization alone for the year 22-23 budget.
So budget request. So what we are asking for this year is an increased teacher supplement by 1%, a recruitment bonus. Go back to this. There you go. Non-certified and local supplement and a refresh plan. Next slide. So one-to-one refresh plan, I'm gonna let Mr. McQueen talk about how that's gonna work.
All right. Currently, we are a full one-to-one district. That means that every student has a device available to it. And one of the things that I'm proud to say that we have adequate devices. We were kind of struggling when the pandemic hit. We didn't have enough devices and we were in a frenzy, if I can say that. So what we're doing, we wanted to be very progressive. In the case that something like this happens again, we wanted to put a refresh plan in place. So let me give you some details. So our goals is to have adequate devices for both our students and our staff at all times. So our refresh plan goes a little something like this. Our pre-K will get a refresh every 4 years, and those particular devices are grade specific. So they have little Lenovo 10E tablets. And so we're gonna replace those every 4 years. So our grades 2, 5, and 9th grade, they're gonna be replaced every year annually. So what this means that every 2nd grader, every 5th grader, and every 9th grader will receive a device every year. And they will keep that device for 4 years. And the reason why we've done that is we've mapped the 4 years to the warranty of the device itself, okay? And then we also didn't forget our staff. We have roughly about 19 to maybe 2,000 staff members. And so we want to refresh those devices as well. So we chose a fourth of the staff to also refresh their devices. Now, last year when we presented this information, the cost right here, you see, to maintain this whole refresh plan was $1.5 million, but now it's really 1.8. And everybody understands the cost of the inflation. A lot of the materials that we use to make the computers are all of, the Intel chips and, glass and things like that. So this is what it will cost us to maintain. It's really $1.8 million per year. Okay.
So prior to presenting this slide, I'm going to take advantage of the comments that Mr. Evans made. I echo your sentiments about teacher shortages or employee shortages in general. So in order for us to recruit and attract highly qualified employees, we have to go beyond the norm of what the state provides. With that being said, we have put a recruitment plan in place, and it provides additional funding for employees that we're seeking in hard to fill positions, numerous vacancies, low performing schools, that's the lowest 5%, tiered on the state's list, and also a retention bonus to show appreciation for the staff members that we already have. With that being said, our budget of $500,000 is what we're requesting for this.
And the next would be our local supplement. The next slide. What we were trying to do is be competitive with other counties surrounding us, where you have Wake County at 17.9 to 23.7. Johnson is 10.5 to 13. We're at 11 to 12.5. And this year we were requesting 2, but the state gave us, I believe it was House Bill 71, a recurring, basically $1,100 per teacher for the next, I'm assuming forever, is what we're thinking. But that was actually a 1% supplement for us. So we were requesting a 1% supplement this year. Next slide. For our non-certified, if we were to increase them at 1% like teachers, you can tell the allotment, it will be about $220,000. A 1.5 would be $330. 2% would be $440. You can tell Ms. Wallace talked about employees and keeping them. We have definitely had concerns with bus drivers, child nutrition. It is very hard to find them, so we need to be able to put this in place to keep these employees. Next slide. So if you see, you have your local current expenses. It's $23,587,000. We're requesting a $2.5 million increase to $26 million, which for the Edgecombe appropriation would be $263,821 for. Next slide. So that is completes our presentation. I've got a whole group here. If you need to ask questions, we'll be glad to entertain those questions at this time.
I don't know if I missed it, passed by quickly, but I was looking for projects for the 4 schools that are on Edgecombe County side. You have a breakdown that you can show me on what the needs are. I didn't see anything in the 23 budget proposed for either one of those schools.
The 23 budget, we didn't do anything what's proposed this coming up year. I will tell you that we are looking at putting those polyurethane floors at Baskerville, DS Johnson on this side, and Inglewood over on the Nash side. But as far as you're asking for a breakdown of I mean, this past year, or is
I saw a couple of things this past year, but I was looking for
things coming up this next
in
fiscal year?
23.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Those 2 projects for sure. I don't have my 23 with me, but there is one other. There's one other roof project. I think we are looking at doing something. I'm not sure if it's at Parker, but normally I try to do 2 or 3 projects a year in Edgecombe, depending on what it is. Mechanical wise, DS Johnson 5 years ago was totally renovated. We just put the chiller at Parker. This roof was replaced last year. We've done all the doors, all the mechanical at Baskerville was done 10 years ago. 6 years ago, the cafeteria, media center, all the surrounding buildings. So mechanically, other than a chiller here at Fairview, mechanically, the equipment is sound.
Did you give the total price that the Northern Nashville House would cost?
We have not done anything with that. The low bid come in over 4, or all in about 4.7, I think.
I'm just curious, can you tell me how much your ADM drop numbers enrollment? Has it been declining in the last 2 or 3 years?
During COVID, we lost about 850. We recovered most of those kids back. I think it's 250 less now than what we started out. So we've
14,497.
14,497.
But the
So-
state is projecting to got 200.
So that's why our budget, if you looked at the local, why we're short, because we're 250 students short.
That's my man. Also, I think we looked at the presentation slide of the increase in the insurance and benefit that goes along with that. I think Ms. Whitman clearly stated that basically that equates out to about $1 million. And along with the state's mandate, as far as that, what we have to do. So there's a gap between those two that somehow we must fill. And I think that your group has been doing a phenomenal job of looking for ways that we sort of offset that gap. But that's a gap that must be completed or filled by local funding. Dr. Mills, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I did want to ask, I heard her say something about what the state is telling you have to do about that $15. Is that for every school system?
Yes.
That was a part of that, and the funding signs from the funding.
That's part of the state budget. Dr. Ellis, sorry, this is, but mechanically speaking, I believe you said all schools on the Edgecombe side were in great shape with the exception of the chiller. Which one did you say so? I'm sorry, I just missed that.
It's a chiller here at Fairview.
Okay.
Yes, and we do have in the extra funding, in one of the extra 3 package. So then everything mechanically will be replaced in Edgecombe County within the last 10 years.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So, Mr. Davis, if you could please, what's the lifespan of the mechanical?
It all depends. It depends on the equipment. You know, you get into the definition of deferred maintenance. I've heard it thrown out a lot. You know, deferred maintenance can mean a whole lot of things. You know, any school system that says they don't have any deferred cost or any deferred maintenance, I wish them well. Let's just take this chiller here. If it's a 15-year-old chiller, if it's got a lifespan of 15 years, well, I haven't had a lot of issues with this chiller on this campus. It may trip every now and then. It was put in service in '97. So technically it's a deferred cost 15 years, whether you're having issues with it or not. So I try to budget my capital project based on, is the equipment costing me more money to keep running than it is to replace it? So that's kind of how we look at doing that.
With the reduction of ADM, what percent is the Edgecombe County students of the total population now?
I think it's 1,600 students. Am I correct?
So what's the percent of that?
Of what was lost?
No, what percent are Edgecombe County students of your total student population?
Well, we're 50, someone do some quick percentages. We got 15,000, 1,600. Right about 10 or 11%. About 10 or 11%.
So it's holding the same. That's about where it's been. Okay. Any questions from maybe your board that we can ask?
Yeah, I have a few. I know you guys got, Mr. Evans talked about economic growth. And I know there's a facility that was just completed up near Hitachi. I guess it's a warehouse facility that they expansion over there. What's their employment rates for that facility?
I don't know specifically for Hitachi's.
Not Hitachi, but there's a new facility across the street from Hitachi.
So Tarboro's built a shell building, so there's no employer there yet, but they're using that as, you know, to generate.
And I know there was conversation about a few years back, Mr. Williams, regarding a facility, tire facility possibly coming to the Tarboro area, and I know it's been put on hold right now, but do you foresee that coming back?
Sure. So that's a Triangle Tire. You know, we expect that Triangle Tire to have started construction already. Unfortunately, they haven't. Per our inducement agreement, they are supposed to complete that plant by the spring of next year. There'll be a whole lot of construction that has to happen. So, you know, we're in conversation with them now to determine if they intend on moving forward with that. If not, we're encouraging them to let us know so that they can return that site back to the county. So those conversations are on.
So if that's completed, what's their looking as far as employment?
Initial phase, 800 employees, full build out, about 1,200 employees.
one of the things that we talked about yesterday with the legislators, and that's basically preparing the workforce for those industries that's coming in. And I'm sure that you guys have looked through that and talked through that. That's one of the things that Dr. Ellis and his staff, along with you guys, when we look at funding and try to support those fundings, and we're requesting what we're requesting. Because at some point in time, if our education system demise, so goes as economic growth in this area. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question that's probably going to create a lot of people.
That's all right.
But I'm good for that. So
I'm
a
good
lot
with
of the
responding.
planning that our staff does, there's that one elusive word that we hear, we read it in the newspaper, we see it, but we don't seem to have a lot of information because it's on the county level. So it happens between our Nash County Board and your county board, and as that family board of demerger. I just feel like I would not be doing a justice to our people if I didn't go home and ask the question. We see that the funding is in place for facility coordinators, there's meetings, there's plannings, there's a lot of stuff, is the word I like to use, and a lot of momentum and things happening on the Edgecombe side, but we're not hearing a lot of that. I would say, do you have anything to offer to us? And if there's nothing else, I would ask that you at least encourage some type of meetings to occur between our superintendent and just to get that information flowing. We hear parents and we hear teachers and people all the time. That word scares them, and I think it scares them because they just don't know.
Well, I think you have heard that word. It has not been coming from our board as having a week to make that determination. It has been coming from what our board did do. We funded a position with the Edgecombe County School System to help us determine what that would look like. Okay. And if and when and what, and to be honest with you, not as a total board, I have pretty much led that issue. But the commitment is, if and when a decision is made to do that by our board, and that's been pushed by Senate Bill, what's it? Senate Bill 382. Okay. It's causing us to have to pay about 11% of capital improvement for everything that you do in town on schools that our children may never attend. So we're looking at those numbers, make a determination as to what we might need to do. The commitment, and I had talked maybe a lot with the commission, that's kind of John, the commitment is even when we make a decision to do that, we certainly will be talking with the Nash County School Board and the county commission, because we would have to talk with you to have some plan of action, okay, as to how we would do that, okay? If some of those students would stay into the Nash County School System, so there would be a plan of action. We are not there, okay, in terms of what we are going to do. There is a conversation. There are 3 community meetings planned to talk with the community as to where they think we ought to go. Okay. If I would tell you how I feel, I feel that it's something that we need. And if at some point we look at those figures and it will be walked to our board in terms of whether we, well, I call it a trigger, that's in the Senate, whether we go for that trigger. And the trigger is that we pay the money. I think, is that right? Is that correct? Okay. And we have, as a total board in a session, I think the only somebody has made, our board has not made a determination. That's where we are. But I would say that if in fact it would happen there would be probably 2 years, I'm not saying 2 years from the day, 2 years from the date that we decided that we would do a consultation with your chair and superintendent and that's kind of what it is. It's a very serious concern for many of us in the county.
Sure, and it's us as well.
Right.
And I just asked that.
And I'm
seems to
glad,
be a lot of
and
conversation.
this work is, and I was prepared to respond to it. Because I was thinking, yes, okay, so, and I agree with you that, somebody, okay, so I know I have no, and according to the statute, that's left up to, not our school board, that's kind of, it's the Edgecombe County Commission that will make a determination as to whether we would enter.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I just asked, it's not up to us.
It's not at all.
It affects us.
And that's what and it's not at all in the hands of our board. As I understand the statute, that's left to the people right here. Okay. And we will be looking at those things.
So, Mr. Bishop, thank you for the question. It has been on the minds of a whole lot of people. But I just like to say this, we have been proactive and looking at this because it's all about our kids. It's not about whether they want the Edgecombe side or Edgecombe County side. It's about children. Every one of them. All 11% of Edgecombe, what we're going to do is I've sort of directed Dr. Ellis to sort of look with Dr. Bridges and come together to start talking about the transitions. We want to be, so if that trigger and when that trigger is pulled, we have already started communications and process how we want to orchestrate that to minimize the amount of impact it will have on the kids. One of the things that our predecessor, Ms. Edge, would always say, this is what we feel, it's all about kids. That the main thing as far as the Board of Education, the Nashville County Board of Education, the Edgecombe County concern is our children. How do we least impact them, give them the biggest quality of transition, and how do we collaborate together to make this happen?
I believe that it's up to our board of education to determine if we pull the trigger of these schools on this side of the track. Can, what are we going to, can they hold them? Where are we going to put them? Okay. Are they, what conditions are they in? If not, where's the money coming from? Okay. Where are we going to get the money from to bring them up to the level that they ought to be if they're not there? Okay. While we've heard from the Nashville County staff in terms of condition, what is our Edgecombe maintenance folks saying about those conditions? The difference. We take a look at them and see what it takes to do that if and when that decision needs to be made. Okay, those kinds of things. Okay? And there might be a difference in what they're saying and what you're actually saying. But we do need to know the cost that's going to make that happen, where that's going to come from. We know that financially, we can't build those schools right now. Okay, we can't. Okay. So where's that money coming from? And we're looking for sources. I have asked our county manager to write to our state delegation in terms of some possible funding. Okay. If in fact they will have to make that happen, that's right. I'm on my signature to make those things happen. This is the first time my board is there in terms of I asked to ask them to make those selections. I see our state legislators here, he did it. Representative Willingham, okay. So we're going to be asking them to be involved in that process. If the state funding, they can help us with that. If federal funding can help us with that. Yet still, it's not a decision that's been made. I got to get 3 more votes. Okay. Okay.
It's not unanimous.
Yes, it's not. It's not. But I got to get 3 more votes.
I personally would not be in favor of it.
Mr. Chairman, for the benefit of the group, may I share the dates of those?
Please,
Sure. So there will be 3 community meetings on May 3rd at Ebenezer Baptist Church, May 10th at Rocky Mount Adventist, and May 18th at Edgecombe Community College here at Rocky Mount. Meetings will be from 5 to 6:30. So we invite all of you to come. Our goal of those meetings is to briefly describe to the attendees as to why we having this conversation, sort of the history that has led us to this point in the conversation, and then really to go through some process to hear from the community. So we encourage all of you to.
I would ask that our board clerk, if you would take notes of those dates and see who likes what member, and then the rest of them.
Any other questions? Any member?
I got one question.
Go ahead.
Dr. Ellis, I'm gonna assume, maybe I shouldn't, that you looked at the figures, if you back out 1,600 students, what is it take out of your budget?
Yes, sir.
And I'm gonna assume that that means that you will have to cut people. You'll have to add.
So the way we see it, and I'll put it that way, is that you would you didn't go to school. Conversation did become teachers in the building, how that's all that. So we see it a little different. I sometimes get a little, right word, I get a little, I get personal when someone talks about our facilities. I'll say that. Oh, I know what our facilities look like. And I'll put it to anyone. I was in a different school system. I know what our schools look like. So there should be no funding issue. You would ask, that's our issue. I just want to know where the kids go, how we're going to do this. I know we're going to lose $10 million. We've already we've got a plan, we've got a transition. And we've had some thinking about it. But I am like Mr. Bissett, it is a constant conversation because it sometimes gets in the way of some other things. I'll put it that way. So we want to make sure we are at the table at one time because we just want to make sure we're doing what's right for students. But I will say I do take it personal when we talk about it. But that's why I'm going to do
Well, I'll say it this way. I think that we will communicate. I personally have not thought that it's time to do it because of the fact that there's been no official position from our board. So there is a public discussion. And it's sometimes a highly sensitive issue. And it's been going on all my life. And since we consolidated the school system to and it will continue to go on the rest of my life if there's nothing done with it. Okay, that's the way I feel about it. As long as there is a portion of Edgecombe County and national census, it will be an issue until such time there is a resolution, and not necessarily as much of a school board issue. I don't think it still is a political issue. And it does not necessarily come from the school board. It come from the politicians in these communities. And sometimes we, and I include myself in that. Okay, see it a little different. Okay. And other issues have caused that. In terms of the perception of it. But again, I'm not speaking for board, because they haven't taken no official position. I'm still speaking in terms of a lot of things that happen. My experience. In that arena that has been involved in this issue from city council member to confirmation. So, personal to some of us too. I think you just understand my position. I'm actually showing that merger and let you know this is next time. Any other comments? Go ahead.
I heard the superintendent say, he gets a little offended when he talks about his facility. But personally, I'd like you to take me to all 4 of those schools on Edgecombe County side so that I can personally see that each one of those schools is exactly where you deem them, where they should be.
Hold on, she'll recognize Ms. Davis.
I can understand the history and concerns with the history. However, with administration's changes, and I have been on this board for 21 plus years, I've seen a change in the facility maintenance. There is a more fair line drawn. You have board members here that have insisted that buildings be equalized in maintenance. We have quite capable hands of Mr. Davis, who's been very, very direct and pointed at things that were by previous administrations overlooked. So I think you will be pleasantly surprised, and I would wish you would go and see for yourself, but there has been a balance established. It's maybe not perfect, but it's a long way from where it used to be, and I think you would be pleasantly surprised. But I find it's much fairer than it's ever been previously, and I do want to say that.
So with that said, Ms. Harris, I'm gonna ask your board chair, if you and I get together, and you guys can communicate if you like to take site visits, and I'll orchestrate that with our superintendent, so you can see whatever school you so choose to see.
Let him talk to her.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, you don't need to come through me, okay? Not necessarily to, I just thought your entire board might want. If any board member wants to, he can talk, you know, we can give him the numbers, and if they want, anyone that wants to make that, and make it happen, but, you know, we can, she has requested that if any other board member wants to, certain, or she can have Mr. Evans about this to check it and set that up. Correct.
So one of the things that they talked about, I think is in my head also, is the ARPA fund. So we're spending a lot of ARPA funds, I believe Mr. Davis said on that. Is the ARPA funds that we're spending on these chillers and that stuff, is that all Nash County funds, or is any of that come from Edgecombe? Yes, sir. It's not, there's not an Edgecombe or a Nash portion. The county will, just like it, every county got their own things. So are we eligible for any of your ESSER funds to go towards that? Would you be willing to offer some funds up to us to help do some?
I think it's down to the school board or the county commission.
I'd say county commission because it's.
And let me.
Because they're not here.
Whatever processes you.
Right.
Whatever process.
Because there's funds there for your school system, you do, I think, and you got it, you can spend it. If you wanted to give us a little bit of.
Not a good hour. So
I'm gonna ask my board, don't get refrain to speak, but she'll recognize, Ms. Fuller.
Am I correct in saying that ESSER funds are based on ADM? So the money is not tied to Edgecombe County or Nash County, but the funding is based upon how many children we have at a particular moment. And the kids in Edgecombe County, as well as the kids in Nash County, are all counted together. So there is no separation. Thank you.
Any other questions from our board?
Any questions?
I would like to know, it doesn't have to be tonight, get back to me on how much of actual capital dollars is spent on the Edgecombe County side of the school to build it over the last 10 years, on a 10-year average. I think it was up last year, or I think we heard, so just kind of update a running average? I know you can't take a snapshot necessarily 1 year, that equate to a 50-year span.
I can tell you over the last 5, I think I reported it last year was a little over 1,011,000, somewhere around 1,000,000. It was over like 535,000 in mechanical, 700 and some thousand in capital improvements. Then we spent the Parker Chiller this year, maybe a couple 300,000 probably in this past year. I think our funding now, all the funding that comes from Edgecombe County, some of that goes to debt service. So I get maybe 115 to 120 in actually Edgecombe funds. So if you really look at it, I average over 200,000 a year roughly in Edgecombe County capital improvements.
If I recall, when we looked at it last year, the amount of money the Edgecombe County sent for capital improvement projects, that equivalent amount or greater was being spent by the Nash Board on Edgecombe County side.
That's correct. And keep in mind, you know, I try not to do it on every year. I can't take 120 and go do one project that's going to spend 120. I spent $500,000 in 1 year at DS Johnson, which is roughly 2.5 years equivalent for what you guys would give. So it's all needs based. If it's averaging out, I'm spending the money. It may be just spending different years, more in 1 year than the next. But the money is being spent on the Edgecombe schools.
And that's why I was asking for a 10-year average, just to kind of get something.
I know I've got solid records for the last 5 because I keep up with it. And that doesn't even count the maintenance and repair. These are just capital. You got utility costs. I mean, when you do a breakdown, you can start getting into a lot, probably more money than has been given when you start breaking down on the utility side, insurances and everything else.
I think it's a misperception of some members of this board that for what we send, we're not getting back.
I can show you numbers.
We need
Actual facts.
prove that with numbers.
Yes, sir.
And I guess honestly, regardless of those perceptions.
Sir,
Regardless of those perceptions.
regardless of the facts and numbers,
Regardless of the perceptions. And the unanswered questions. In order to end this kind of discussion as to the fairness of that would end that question. Okay, that would end that question. So it's not where our schools, regardless of what's been done or what's not been done, okay, that's where we're gonna get the money from. Okay, if in fact it is, it's not done. My position is, we need to question, and that's it. That's the outward factor. Any other questions from our board?
I do have one more. I know we're not thinking that the funds that come from Edgecombe are supposed to be able to take care of every capital need of those schools. And those schools are still Nash County public schools. They have a portion, we have a portion. Or nothing would ever get done in those schools if they were just depending on the dollars that were coming from Edgecombe. Because Nash is getting other privileges by those 1,600 children being in their schools. So nobody should think that what we're sending is supposed to take care of every capital need of those schools. But those schools and those children are still Nash County public school children.
But I like to thank the board. Officer, the change of that name means that something is in terms of that kind of public schools. But I still like to thank, and I appreciate the support and the things that you have done. You all have been advocates of our children in our school. We understand our different rules. Cause of us sometimes. But I want to thank you to the host for allowing us to do the children. And for us. Thank you for the hard work. I wish wouldn't be a school board. Different place to be, it's hard, okay? I think when I was at a meeting, they called mad moms. Man, that's what they was calling school board, I don't know how that thing came up, but I think that's what they deal with, but you got a different job. This time. Yeah. Anything that's to come to our board. Not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, again, we would like to say thank you to Mr. Chair, County Manager, and to the Commissioner of Edgecombe County. We appreciate your hard work and your labor. I know it's not easy. And we have a lot of people that you have to try to meet the needs of. But we thank you for hosting or providing the food for us. It was great. And Mr. Webb, I trust that you had enough that would sustain you. Thank you again for coming out. And if our board has no other questions or concerns, I'd like to adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Can I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn.